everyone. Happy Women's History Month, and it's National Equal Pay Day. I can't think of a better way to uplift the movement for gender justice than celebrating our fourth birthday as the City of Pittsburgh Gender Equity Commission. And if you don't know me, my name is Morgan Overton. I serve as acting chair of the Gender Equity Commission. And today we are shaking up our usual business meeting. And instead, we are celebrating our past, our present, and our future. And most importantly, how we are being active and accountable to the community to achieve intersectional gender justice. For all who are watching, you can stay tuned with what the Gender Equity Commission is up to by going to our website, which is pittsburghpa.gov/GEC. And please keep in touch with us by emailing genderequity@pittsburghpa.gov. So let's go ahead and get started with the show this afternoon. To kick things off, we are going to hold a mini panel discussion to take you down memory lane of how we even got here. And we are super excited to be joined by former Councilwoman Natalia Rudiak and Marcia Bandes, who were collectively pivotal in forming the Gender Equity Commission. So thank you so much, ladies, for joining us today. We are very excited to reflect back and honor our history. So to kick things off, do you each mind giving a brief introduction of yourselves? And we can start with Natalia.
Oh boy. Hi everybody. It's so good to see all your faces. I really missed you all. Yeah. So I'm Natalia Rudiak. I was a member of Pittsburgh City Council for 8 years, but as many of you know, I have been involved in Pittsburgh politics for quite some time, and policymaking for quite some time. I've always been passionate about gender and equality, as I have thought through every piece of legislation that I have put forth, not just the Gender Equity Commission, right? Because every single piece of legislation should contain an element of intersectional equity, because that's what we're here for, and that's what government should be accountable to. So I was finance chair for 4 years. I can't even believe that. So finance and law chair, and really enjoyed working with grassroots groups, including the groups led by Marcia. If I can be so biased, I think this is a good bias. You were my favorite coalition to work with. Don't tell anybody else that is live streaming this. I just really loved our conversations and how we collectively work together to really make this all happen, from really putting down the nitty-gritty of exactly what the legislation was going to look like and how it would be implemented into the code, to how it would be legislated into the code, to how it would actually be implemented, from budgeting to research, to priorities, to actually literally creating and recruiting members of the commission. Because, you know, there's a lot of hoopla when there's maybe public hearings, but the real work happens behind the scenes. And as we ladies know, we're often the ones that do the work behind the scenes. And so I think we need to recognize that too, right? I think we need to recognize the hours that you all spend on the commission at those meetings, hashing things out, recruiting other people, dealing with bylaws. It's not glamorous, but this is what makes it happen. So I want to thank your leadership on the commission for guiding us through what has really been through a tumultuous past few years in more ways than one. And yeah, so I don't know if I mentioned this, but I did work with the coalition to sponsor the legislation to put forth the legislation on City Council's plate. Does anybody remember when we had the public hearing and only the women showed up, or council showed up?
Yep.
Yeah.
Only women council members showed up.
And it was really powerful. It was really, really powerful. And I was professionally angry and personally upset that only the female council members, women council members showed up. So it clearly just shows that we have to do better. And I know that we have an incoming mayoral administration that is really committed to equity and intersectional equity. And so I really hope that as we look forward to the next few years, that the Gender Equity Commission will be an integral part of that journey of making social change, and that the collective powers of you all and us all are really leveraged and seen for what they are, because we collectively, like you all, we all are unstoppable. And so we need to be able to work with the administration to not only put forth research, but operationalize it, put action behind it. And I'm really proud of the research that the Gender Equity Commission has put forward. I think the report in 2017 was a landmark report. Of course, for those just watching, I'm speaking of the intersectional report that showed that out of a class of 89 cities and various dimensions of indicators of quality of life, from suicide to cigarette smoking, it was shown that Black women consistently score in the lower tier, if not dead last for cities and quality of life. And so it just shows, and if this research would not have been done without the Gender Equity Commission and the city funding, the public dollars that were put behind it, and the public university that carried through the work. So let's not forget that the public sector, as much as government is, as much cynicism as there is about government right now, we need to make it clear that government is the catalyst for change, as long as we work with grassroots groups towards a common goal. I know I've talked a lot, so I will pass it on to Marcia.
Natalia, you answered all my questions. We could just go home now.
Well, I will always have more to say.
I love it.
You know, I'm not officially, I'm not officially a politician anymore, but you can't stop me from talking. I still have it. I still have it.
No, but you're speaking truth to power, and that's what we're here for. So yeah. I will pass it over to Marcia, and then following your introduction, Marcia, the first question is actually for you, because you're a community leader and you were at the root of this commission. So we would love to hear what moved you to do this, as well as talk about the organizations that were behind you in this effort. So the mic is off to you, Marcia.
Sure, thank you. So I'm Marcia Bandies, and I still am, I guess, the chairperson for the Pittsburgh for CEDAW Coalition, and it is a coalition. And I moved to Pittsburgh probably about 14 years ago now. I worked for IBM at the time, and when I retired, I looked around for different organizations to get involved with. League of Women Voters was one of them that I started getting involved in, but the one that really caught my attention at the time was the Women's International League for Peace and Freedom. It's called WILF for short, and it was headed up and is still headed up by Edith Bell, and she has always been a go-getter. She's always been, interested in promoting peace, but also all of the different aspects that go along with it. And so at one of our meetings, a WILF person from the U.S. national organization came and told us about CEDAW and asked us, wouldn't we want to do this in Pittsburgh? And I said, I don't know anything about it. I'll have to look into it. So I came back to the meeting and I said, this is huge. There's no way that our organization can do this. We need a coalition, but I'd like it to start out small. So Edith Bell has got a lot of ties and a lot of respect around the city. And so she reached out to the Women Girls Foundation and to the New Voices Pittsburgh. They both agreed to participate with us, and they both helped immensely. We could not have done it without either of them. their breadth, their knowledge, their distribution lists, their skills, just all helped us make this happen. And so, as it turns out, the very first meeting we had, which New Voices Pittsburgh offered their room for us, their conference room for all of our meetings, we met there, and I'm the one that brought the agenda. And so everybody looked at me and said, "Oh, okay, so you're going to lead this," and that's how I got my role. But it was exciting, and I've never had the experience before of doing something where people. I've always been an activist for a variety of different things, but I've never been involved in something where people or organizations came to me and said, "We would like to join." So the Zonta Club came and said, "We would like to join." Judy Hale from a lawyer came and said, "I would like to join. I've done CEDAW in other countries." And we had University of Pittsburgh come and say, "We want to join." And others came, and we went out and we presented what we were doing. And then, so the Women's Law Project, the League of Women Voters, they all joined. So many organizations joined. We had over 30 organizations join. So it was just a very exciting time. And we put together a brochure, and even before we started meeting with council members, Natalia was involved in so many different things, and she showed up at all sorts of different events and everything. So when we saw her, we said, "Oh, Natalia, guess what we want to do?" And Natalia jumped right on it with both feet. She said, "Oh yeah, we've got to do this." And then the next time we saw her, "So where is it? I haven't seen anything yet." And so she just kept prodding us. But we had to get organized. We couldn't just, start out, flying. So then what we did was we created a brochure, and we listed all the endorsers on the brochure, but we also listed two other things. We listed reasons why we felt that there was a lot of discrimination in Pittsburgh and why we felt that we needed things, such things as like 77% at the time, 77% of single parent households in poverty were run by women. And there were other significant things like that. There was, what was it? It was like the Women's Center and Shelter helped roughly 6,000 victims of domestic violence. I mean, there were just a lot of issues. So, and then the other thing that we added was, and I don't know how many people are familiar with CEDAW that are listening to this, but it stands for the UN Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women. And so one of the things that we did was we turned to the very first city that ever implemented this, and that was San Francisco. Never before had a city taken a UN convention and converted it and made it local. So that's where we really started getting into take the global and make it local. And we looked at the successes that they had, and they had some phenomenal successes. They went 44 months without domestic violence homicide. They created a special unit to work with young girls who have suffered trauma. They had gotten more lighting so it was safer on their streets at night, and just various other things. But the thing that we have to remember, and I hope we do as we go forward with the Gender Equity Commission, is that was back in 1998. We didn't start rolling out the cities for CEDAW until 2014. And the reason for that, they didn't see all those successes in the first 2 years or the first 4 years or the first 8 years. It took years. It took over a decade. So we have to be tenacious, and we have to keep working. But we will make progress. It just isn't going to happen quickly. We're trying to change not just policy, but the way people think about things. So I just think it's really important that we keep that in mind. So anyways, and so then we went to Natalia when we got all this done, and we we didn't look like three crazy ladies walking through the door. We had our brochure, you know, with all the endorsing organizations, and we had why we felt it was important and what other successes another city had had. And Natalia was so helpful, and your chief of staff, Bethany Cameron, was also
yeah. We had all of our staff members, Ashley Deemer, Bethany Cameron, Megan Niff. They were great.
All helpful. Yes. Yeah, it was fantastic. And so, and then we met with a number of the other council members. Surprisingly, I think they were just about all women. I think we met with Dan Gilman also, but and we got their support. The interesting thing is we went in thinking we'd go for a resolution, and the women said, no, you want to go for an ordinance. You want to make it law. You've got momentum here, make it law. So that's what we did. But anyways, so I think I answered your question.
Yes, you did. And that leads into my next question for Natalia, because I want to lift up what you mentioned earlier, that government is a catalyst for change, right? And, Marcia was saying, you were like, yeah, let's do it. But what compelled you to, go further and have government champion this grassroots effort?
Let's see, where do I start? Okay, let's just be real. The personal is political, right? Like, why are any of us involved in this? Why is anyone here? I don't think it's because we all have a degree in political science, right? I think it's because, I'm sure that's part of it for some of the folks here. Jesse, I see you. But I think it's because we have lived experience of what it's like to be a woman in the world in any capacity. And so as being a young woman on city council, and this is going to sound strange, and I'm kind of, I don't know, dating myself in a way, because, when I actually was elected to city council, I was the youngest woman elected to city council. It still is a pretty misogynistic place to be. A lot of government is, but as a young woman in particular, in every career move that I have made, I have felt discrimination. I have felt unsafe walking down the street. I have felt unsafe in my personal life. With men in my life, I have felt discrimination in any capacity, and that's something that you inevitably bring to the way that you govern. And that's why representation in government is so important, and why I'm a fighter for that. And so I thought that we needed a gender equity commission, and I was obviously super into the idea when it was brought to me, and it's almost like we hammered something out. We had this big block of marble, and we hammered a beautiful ordinance out, and we need them in all cities at all levels of government. I will put it that way. So Allegheny County, let's do it.
Yes.
But not to put more on your plates, I was really into this concept, and if anybody's watching out there, and I'm sure you all on this screen are familiar with the concept of gender mainstreaming, which in addition to San Francisco, there are many other municipalities that have taken gender mainstreaming into part of their public policy decisions. And as Marcia was saying, whether it's public safety or public works, or whether it's parks or lighting, women simply experience the world differently than men. And we live in a world that is built for men, by men, of men, and we don't even realize it. We don't even realize it when we're walking down the street, when we're walking through parks. I've been doing consulting for the past few years, and one of the projects that I worked on was super fascinating. It was looking at public spaces and making public spaces out of alleys or like old vacant lots and things like that. It's actually overseas. And I was shocked at how little research there was actually about how to, I mean, we're talking internationally, there's very little research on how young girls experience parks differently. But some of the information that we found is we did, I'm trying to remember what they were called, but essentially surveys of how different space was used in public parks. And what was found by the research that we did was that men took up all quadrants of all the park. Men went wherever they want at all times of day. When women went to the park, they specifically maybe gathered in one quadrant at specific times of day together. And that if there was a part of the park that was a more informal part of the park, like a kind of a vacant lot, or something like that, it was boys that took it over. It was boys that played soccer. It was boys that played football. And so I'm taking a very basic concept, parks and recreation, and you see even through parks and recreation, how men and boys are given permission to take up more space at all times of day, in formal and informal ways. And it's there's more that I can get into, but and the other thing, actually, there was a park that we designed that was designed for by young women. And we actually found out that young women use, like, we're talking young girls, they use parks differently. Boys like to sit in rows. Girls like to sit in circles. Things you never think about because no one has bothered to ask. No one has bothered to study. And so we need to think about this as we make decisions in every little aspect of life. And I hope that, so when we talk about, how did this come about, or what was the motivation? I think it's just because I personally was tired of being invisible. I know everybody in this virtual room has felt invisible at one point in time. And, we have to change, we have to change. And so when it comes to, again, things like lighting or parks or anything that the city touches, anything that a public dollar touches, we need to, I'll put it this way, anything that a public dollar touches, we need to be sure that it's safe enough for a 12-year-old girl, a 12-year-old Black girl, a 12-year-old trans girl, a 12-year-old disabled girl. And it's not safe enough for a 12-year-old girl, then it's not safe for anybody in the city.
I love that.
I'm over here writing down these quotes. I am here for it. And that leads me to my last question. And we have 7 minutes left in this little mini Oprah segment. But this might be a heavy hitting question for the both of you. Looking forward, what are your hopes for the commission now that we are confronted with the pandemic? We've experienced and are still experiencing a reckoning for racial justice, a labor movement, all happening within the last 2 years. Where do we go from here?
Did you want me to go next, or?
Yeah, if you feel called to, yes.
Okay. I would say a couple of things. Number one, first off, let me just jump over and just comment to Natalia, is that we are looking at Allegheny County. So, where I would like to see the Gender Equity Commission going is, for one thing, the gender analysis was supposed to be 4 parts. It was supposed to be the part that got done, that the University of Pittsburgh did an incredible job with. It's a stake in the ground. It's a line in the sand. It is an amazing piece of work that we will be referring to probably for years. And the next thing, though, was we were supposed to do 2 other things. We were supposed to do an internal gender analysis, and I believe that will probably happen. But before we do that, what I had really hoped to see happen was to get out, and Mayor Gainey has done a little bit of this in a different way, but I wanted us to get out to the different communities that were not captured during that gender analysis. I wanted to get out to the LGBTQ community. I wanted to get out to the Hispanic community. I wanted to get out to the Bhutanese, to the Muslims that are in this city, and understand from them what they saw and what their solutions would be to these struggles, to these things that were uncovered, or things that have not been uncovered because they didn't get caught up in the big gender analysis. And then based on that, and asking them what their solutions would be, and working also with the results and meeting with the communities that were covered in the gender analysis, to take those solutions that they saw and try to quantify them in a way so that when we do go out to these different departments in the city, that we could then say, we could help them understand, what gender equity is if they don't fully grasp it, and not everyone does. I think even we struggle with it once in a while. And that is then to say, okay, let's look at your budget. Let's look at your programs. If we look at these things, what can you do to help here? What can you do to make a difference? And to get back to the parks example that Natalia brought up, I would like to see them, look at the parks, or look at some of the summer programs that are done. Do the same number of young girls and young boys go after the same programs. And if they don't, why not? Don't just say, well, we offered it and this is who came. Why didn't the other group come? And what do we need to do to change that? Do we need different marketing? Do we need separate groups? Well, what do we need? Let's get creative. Let's look at these and solve these issues. And that's the way I would like to approach the departments and the people within them with the gender analysis. And then lastly, from all these solutions and things, as I said, that's what the fourth part of the gender analysis was supposed to be, and that was solutions. And I know that the Gender Equity Commission has done a fabulous job with what they've had to come out with solutions. And those actions are making a difference in the work that they're doing, the workshops with AAUW and other aspects that you've tackled. So, and I'm not trying to blame in any way, because as I said to begin with, this is not something that's going to happen overnight. It's not going to happen in 4 years. It is something that we're just going to have to keep plugging at and plugging at. And so that's what I would like to see. And then Natalia, did I leave time for you? Yeah.
There's always more. That's not enough. So no. Yes, I would love to see like the internal gender equity analysis, however you all decide to approach that, whoever, whether that's looking at, a number of indicators or variables inside the city. There is some really, like I said, some really interesting research around there around gender mainstreaming. If you just want to look at that as a keyword in Google. Sweden, shockingly, is really big into it. Lots of Scandinavian countries, and even oh goodness, I lost my train of thought. So yeah, there's a lot of good examples out there, and there's an additional thing, and I think Councilwoman Gross would understands this, the infusion of rescue plan monies, the infusion of, we're getting a lot of infrastructure, the Infrastructure and Jobs Act from the federal government that was passed last year, those two big federal pots of money. How do we hold whoever accountable for making sure that there's a gender component to all of that? Wouldn't it be cool if every single piece of spending or legislation had to talk about a gender impact of that? If we're going to spend money on crosswalks, if we're going to spend money on roads, how can we plan for that 12-year-old girl? Again, every single piece of dollar that we spend, how are we planning for that 12-year-old girl? again, just a literal simple thing. I was walking through Oakland last year, a couple of years ago, and I noticed that there was on a pair of steps, it was just fresh city steps, was freshly done. And it looked like there was like a concrete strip for a bicycle to go up. And I was thinking, you know, when you go to Europe, not only do they have one concrete strip, but they have a larger one or two for strollers.
Maybe even a wheelchair.
Or a wheelchair. If we're already doing the work, let's do it a little bit better for the rest of us, like half of us. So we have the amazing opportunity with the Parks Fund. I don't know how that money is getting spent. Maybe Marcel, you can help with that. I don't know how that money is getting spent. A lot of folks in this room can help with that. But I mean, again, you know, with every single master plan that we're doing for some of these parks, we need to make sure there's a gender component, that there's a gender intersectional component. Again, how are parks used in Homewood versus how are they used in Beachview versus how are they used in Shadyside? There's lots of different usages. We need to make sure that everybody feels safe, and why certain groups use parks. We keep up bringing parks, but even when you look at public safety, I mean, that's like massive, right? I mean, there's so many layers to peel back there, but you know, even if you look at things like sexual violence and abuse, you know, how is our police department or public safety department handling those types of things? So again, the list goes on, but there's a lot of new opportunities through new streams of funding. And there's a lot of work that needs to be done internally, and talking to different external groups and what they would like to see and what solutions need to come out of that.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you hit the nail on the head. Everything informs one another. I mean, intersectionality to the core. Well, I truly appreciate the both of you. I could talk to you two all day long, and we need to continue this conversation. So I give you a round of applause. Thank you for joining us for this little mini segment. And I'm going to pass the mic over to Janet Manuel, who will be presenting an overview of our pivotal 2019 report, but not in the typical way. I think most of us have been inundated with the overview of the report. We know where to go from here. So Janet's going to get us all fired up and think about how we move forward. Janet.
Thank you. I appreciate it, Acting Chair Overton and former Councilwoman Rudiak. Thank you so much for joining us. For those that may not know, she is in Poland, but she still made it, and we're very appreciative. And to Marcia Bandis, thank you so much. The history lesson, you can't know where your future holds or how to operate in the present if you don't know about your past. And so we greatly appreciate hearing that with us, and for those that are watching us live stream, and for those that will watch it even after, as the recording will be posted. So my role is to talk about the infamous Pittsburgh Inequality Across Gender and Race report that was distributed in September of 2019. And of course, when it first came out, so many in the Pittsburgh area were not too happy with the City of Pittsburgh Gender Equity Commission. Well, we all know, for those of us that have been in Pittsburgh, those that are not originally from here, like myself, or for those of you that have been born and raised here, the inequalities that were faced was known. But as a commission, we put it in writing. And when it's in writing, you can't take it back. If we just said it verbally, some people could have forgotten about it. Some people could have added to it. Some people could have subtracted to it. But we want everyone in Greater Pittsburgh to know how serious we were about the work for the Gender Equity Commission. And so I want to give thanks to former Mayor William Peduto, but also to the authors, Jania Howe, Sarah Goodkind, Leah Jacobs, Dominique Branson, and Liz Miller, all from the University of Pittsburgh, for their work that was done on the report. And so I'm not really here to rehash all of the things that were said in the report, but I just want to take just a little bit of time just to help people understand that the report was created because we all know City of Pittsburgh has been identified as, a livable city. But we wanted this to be an intersectional report looking at race and gender. Some people have said, livable for who? Is it livable for all or just livable for some? And so the type of work that we do, and if our priority as a commission was to help make that livability work for everyone, we needed to know where our strengths were. And unfortunately, yes, we also had to look at our weaknesses. And so throughout that report, and for those of you that might not have read it, it is on the website that you can pull up and read. But there were just 10, the summary. We always go for the summary of the indicators for room for improvement, because that's really what the key is about. We can talk about the problems, but then what else are we going to do about it? And so as a commission and from the report, there were 10 indicators that if we worked on it, it would improve Pittsburgh's livability. And the first was maternal mortality for Black women. Second, low rates in the labor force for Black women. Number 3, occupational segregation for Black men. Number 4, poverty for Black children and Black women. Number 5, homicide for Black men. Number 6, tobacco-related deaths for Black women. Number 7, cancer for Black men. Number 8, low college admissions tests for all students. Number 9, low average income for Black men. And number 10, cardiovascular disease for Black men. Those were the 10 areas in a summary that was given to the commission for us to work on. How do we address it? And so, yes, we can't do it alone. It does take a village, as our acting chair Overton always says. It does take a village. It's not only government, it's private sector. It's anyone who says that they want everyone to have a fair chance in life. Anyone that is listening, anyone that is watching, you can join the City of Pittsburgh Gender Equity Commission. Our work has just begun. We are celebrating 4 years, and we are going to continue to focus on these indicators. So we've already started the work. It's one thing to have that report done and then have it sit nice on a shelf and let dust, be collected. But that's not what we're doing as a commission. We had the report conducted. We made an announcement about the findings, and now we are in the thick of things, of trying to address and getting things done. It takes a village. It's not just us, but we're asking for everyone to join in. So the first 4, there are 4 areas out of the 10 that we've been working on since 2020. And that is the low rates in the labor force, the occupational segregation, poverty, as well as low average income. And out of this came a committee, the Workforce Equity Committee. I'm a little biased. I currently serve as chair, and acting chair Overton serves on that committee, as well as our commissioner Newman. But my originators who joined is former is our, I'm sorry, Commissioner Hanson, and then former Commissioner Nietrauer. The 3 we created and started the workforce equity, and then the current 3, we're continuing to do this work. We're the committee, but collectively, everyone on the commission is supporting the work that is being done by the workforce equity. So the first thing that we're doing is partnering. I believe that Marcia had mentioned it earlier, that we do have that partnership with AAUW, American Association for University for Women. And that is all last year in 2021. And we will continue to do more training. We were conducting free, and let me emphasize that word, free training uh, for women to come and hear how they will first understand what their worth is, know that they matter, and that they have the right to ask for more money. They have the right to state what their worth is in the workplace. And here we are with National Pay Equity Day. Um, but there's still the inequity of pay between men and women. And so when we look at those four areas, poverty, low average income, occupational segregation, low rates in the labor force, this really just starts, this is just like the tip of the iceberg, where we're trying to educate and help everyone know how to negotiate during an interview or when a job offer is made, and know how to ask for an increase in their current workplace. Former Councilwoman Rudiak stated, women are always carrying it, but yet we don't tout what we are worth. And so we are out there providing free 1 hour training with the partnership of AAUW for the Work Smart training sessions. And as those are announced throughout the year for 2022, I want everyone to continue to spread the word and encourage everyone to attend. Our goal is to train 7,500 in 5 years. Is that a lofty goal? And the answer is yes. But why shoot low? If we never aim high, we'll never get out of this pay gap that we're in. And the she session that continues to exist since the concept of the pandemic. And it is making the gender gap worse. So that is one of the things that we are doing from those indicators. And you will also hear more from a workforce equity of how we are going to be having partnerships and presenting sessions on how to create your resume. Here are tips on what you can do for an interview, how to dress for success. So there will be more coming from a workforce equity. That was the first step. And I know that it's a 3-prong approach. And as our commission, our GEC executive committee talked about, we were going to implement the Workforce Council. And we have great partners throughout Pittsburgh that are doing some of this work because they saw this report. Yes, people were not happy with it, but once their, disappointment subsided, they realized, wait a minute, this report was factual. And instead of just getting mad about it, let's do something about it right along with the GEC. And so I want to thank those partners who are out there that are also helping us keep this focus on pay equity, as well as other aspects that came out of this report. So thank you. You will hear more. We're not done. We're just getting started. In a couple of months, we are going to start doing education series on tobacco and the danger of it. We can't make or force everyone to stop smoking, but we can educate them. And when people, if you know better, you do better. Once you know better, you do better. And that's what Maya Angelou said. And so that now that we know as a city, we know what those 10 indicators are that we have to improve on, we are going to address them so we can do better. We're going to be having a listening series on tobacco and the unfortunate harm that it does to you in the body. We are going to be having guest speakers talking about college and how to prepare yourself, to educate yourself for those that want to go, and how we can eliminate this low college admission test rating that is going on in greater Pittsburgh. We are going to be having information and listening sessions from respective medical experts on cancer, maternal mortality, cardiovascular disease, medical experts on homicide, how, since 2020, everyone's health and wellness is of utmost importance, but even more. But it was identified in this report even before the pandemic. You will hear more from us with information and listening sessions on poverty and what are things that we can do to address it and help eliminate it in the greater Pittsburgh area. This report is not going to sit on a shelf. It hasn't been sitting on the shelf. We have been doing the work, even during the pandemic. We kicked off all of the free training last year. We had the initial process for the Workforce Equity Committee at the onset of the pandemic in 2020. While others stopped work, we continued to work. We wanted everyone to know how serious we were and that there wasn't a pandemic or anything that could stop our focus. So we encourage those that are on, our past commissioners, our current commissioners, as well as those that are our partners, to join us in this effort. And let me repeat again the 10 areas that report stated that if we work on that, it would improve Pittsburgh's livability, maternal mortality, low rates in the labor force, occupational segregation, poverty, homicide, tobacco-related deaths, cancer, low college admission tests, low average income, cardiovascular disease. What impacts one Pittsburgher impacts us all. If we want to say this is the most livable city, then why should we turn a blind eye when there is a fellow Pittsburgher who needs our help? That's how we become a livable city. That when one person is down, we do not turn our back on them. We instead reach out our hand and we help lift them up. We're not giving handouts. We are giving hands up. We are lifting them up. And I encourage everyone to please join us. The work still has to continue. There's so much more to be done. And the City of Pittsburgh Gender Equity Commission, we are still here, 4 years strong. If you're enjoying this celebration on 4 years, wait till we turn 5. You haven't seen nothing yet. We're just getting started. This report is the blueprint, and we're going to continue to do whatever work is needed for the City of Pittsburgh. So join us. We're all in this together, and we got this. Thank you. I will turn it over to Acting Chair Overton.
Yes, I feel like we needed some background music with that. I'm ready to go. I don't know about y'all, but
If you're not
no,
fired
we're
up.
ready. Fired up. I know we're all fired up and ready to go, and that's why I'm so excited. Thank you for that, Janet.
Thank
I
you.
think you provided a whole different perspective about that report in more operationalized ways and areas for people to get involved. And like you said, that I always say, it takes a village, right? So moving forward, okay, we got the context of our history. We got the scope of our report that sets the tone for our work. So now we're going to talk about a little bit more about what we've been doing behind the scenes and in partnership with community. I'm going to turn it over to second Vice Chair, Sarah Hansen, who will moderate a Q&A with past and present me GEC chairs, Jesse Ramey, Amanda Neatrower, and me. So Sarah.
Thank you, Acting Chair Overton. And my quick question for you is, I know we are expecting the mayor to drop in at some point very soon. So is this just a notice that if Mayor Gainey pops in, we'll pause, our panel will pause, and I'll turn it over to you. Okay.
Yeah, our surprise guest, yeah, probably around 4-ish.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. So as mentioned, yes, I am so happy to moderate this panel with our current and past GEC chairs. So we have past chair Jesse Ramey, our inaugural chair, past chair Amanda Neatrower, and current acting chair Morgan Overton. So I'm going to start with this first question to past chair Ramey. In June 2020, so as we just heard from Commissioner Manuel, we had the report 2019, and then in June 2020, the GEC issued a follow-up report, Building an Equitable New Normal, responding to the crises of racist violence and COVID-19. And a quote from that, the preamble to that report is that the city must be bold, creative, and committed above all to those most impacted by the dual crises of racist violence and the pandemic. Pittsburgh can lead the way for the nation and the world by continuing to build a city for all. The report is situated as a guide to help build this equitable new normal. Could you kindly speak to the report, how and why the GEC developed it?
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And it is such an honor actually to have some of our founding members back with us because they were such an important part of the development of this report. So it's really great to look out there and see your faces, Lee and Maggie and Chelsea, Kalani, Amanda, welcome back. Just lovely to have you. And of course, our founders, Natalia and Marcia, because you all were such an important part of the development of this report. So Sarah asked me just to sort of comment, where did this come from? Why did we do this report? This is actually a series of recommendations, and this commission got this out really quickly. We were only about 2 months into the pandemic, if you think about it, when we started actually writing this and pulled it together and passed this series of recommendations. And the quick turnaround is because of a couple of things. One is we knew how important it was to get some recommendations out, but we couldn't have done that if we hadn't already been doing the work. And that was collectively that our organizations, as individuals, the work that we're connected to through all of our coalitions that Marcia was talking about, that work on the ground with so many different groups really allowed us to pull together these recommendations as fast as we did. One of the things the group here knows that we did just as the pandemic was launching, we held a town hall to hear from the community, to really understand what was going on. We were only a couple of weeks in, and we already knew that women were going to be disproportionately impacted by the pandemic. So we were only 2 or 3 weeks into the pandemic. We had a town hall with over 300 people on Zoom. All of us were still learning how to click and where to look. I mean, none of us knew how to use Zoom yet, right? It was a technical achievement of the Gender Equity Commission to pull that off. And we heard again and again at that town hall from one person after the next that we had to stop talking about getting back to normal because normal wasn't working for too many people. And we had to really start talking about how to build an equitable new normal. So that's where the title of the series of recommendations came from. And of course, right at that moment, we were also being confronted with yet another wave of racist violence in this country following the George Floyd. And we were confronting that and really as a group decided we needed to release recommendations that addressed anti-racist work as well as the intersectional recommendations that we've been talking about. So that was the moment. I'm kind of bringing us all back to 2020. That was the moment. That's what we were doing as a group. And again, if you take a look at the beginning of this suite of recommendations, and you can find it on our website, just like Janet said, you can find our other report on our website. You can find this one on our website as well. there are over 50 individuals and organizations who are thanked in the acknowledgements. And I invite you to take a look at that list because, again, it was the work that was already going on in our community and the fact that we as a group were so connected to all of those organizations that we were able to quickly pivot, reach out, start having conversations with so many folks, and really lift up and elevate those voices from the community. So this group didn't invent the wheel here. We didn't write something new that nobody had ever been talking about. We really were able to go out to those organizations. And again, in a lot of cases, big coalitions working on things like paid sick leave campaigns, and elevate and lift up the voices of the community and bring their recommendations to the front. And I think that that's what's so powerful about this suite of recommendations is it's doing that work and doing it in the way that we know collectively is the most powerful. All right, Sarah, did I answer your first question?
Yes, and I have one follow-up question. So there were 11 total recommended steps in that report, and we know that every single one is critical. But is there one step in particular that's speaking to you as being of a special priority in this moment?
That's hard. That's hard and almost unfair. I'm going to actually take a book out of Janet's, or a page out of Janet's book right now, and I'm just going to kind of read into the record. I think it's worth mentioning all 11 of these recommendations just very quickly. I won't read the details, but I think just as Janet was doing, we need to acknowledge the importance of these 11 recommendations and the breadth. All of our work collectively has been really important, but we haven't got at every issue out there. There's so much more. Natalia was recognizing gender-based violence prevention, right? Or issues of safety, right? Educational issues that were raised up in our report. Lots of things that we need to talk about. So let me just, for the sake of making sure we've talked about them quickly, and then I promise I will answer your question about what I think we ought to be focusing on. The very first recommendation said address police violence immediately, and that was really in response to what was happening in 2020 and still today. And we need to do that obviously in an intersectional way, right? We also need to mandate the collection of disaggregated data, and I'm going to come back and talk about that one and why that's so important. We also recommended building gender expertise into all of the decisions that get made around response plans, expertise on teams, all of the COVID response. We were really hoping to see some expertise that embedded into those decision-making. And then prioritizing resources for women, including girls, trans women, gender diverse people, for essential health services. I think we haven't talked enough about how we act as a pass-through for some of these dollars, and really thinking about sexual and reproductive health services and gender-based violence prevention. Our fifth recommendation was to fully implement and update the city's Rooney Rule, or what some of our partners call the Rooney Rule with results. This gets at some really important work that Janet's working on in HR, but even goes further around hiring and promotions and really thinking about what that could look like in the city and how we can be a leader. Number 6 was promoting pay equity in hiring by requiring pay transparency and prior salary history. And there's so much data behind those two. We can go a long way in this city towards promoting real equity and closing the wage gap with just those two things. Number 7 was strengthening paid sick leave. We've got amazing paid sick leave legislation in Pittsburgh. We have a whole series of recommendations on how we can make it even stronger. 8 was legislating paid safe leave, which often goes with paid sick leave. 9 was expanding access to quality early childhood education. 10 was supporting local women-owned businesses, so important. And finally, number 11 was piloting a universal basic income. And we put that one last, thinking that was sort of the most pie in the sky, and we've already actually got that off the ground. So I'm really, really pleased that that one is already underway. In fact, we could talk about some of the progress we've made on a number of these things, but some really important work. Shall I pause there before answering the rest of the question? Yes, I think our special guest is with us.
Our esteemed guest is here today. So at this point, I will turn it back over to Acting Chair Overton.
Yes, I am incredibly excited to present our special and surprise guest for this afternoon, Mr. Mayor Ed Gainey. Thank you so much for spending time in your busy schedule helping Pittsburgh to speak to us and, of course, the greater community about gender equity and, of course, celebrating our 4th birthday with us. So I will pass the mic off to you, Mayor.
Okay, can y'all hear me?
Yes.
Hey, first, I just want to say thank y'all. Thank y'all for having me today. I appreciate the opportunity to be here. Secondly, I want to say hello to Councilwoman Deborah Gross. Deborah Gross. Oh, wow. Okay, Deb Gross. And I just want to thank everybody for being here. You know, I can't wait to meet with y'all because I definitely want to talk about how we can improve gender inequity in this region. As you can tell already, my 5th floor is very diverse, probably diverse than it's ever been. And I'm not just talking about in position, but I'm talking about authority. And what I mean by authority is that people that's in position to be able to make decisions on behalf of this city without always having to come through me. And I'm very proud of the team that we put together. And I tell people, if they ask me, well, how do you know you put a good team together? I tell them it's because how they handle adversity. You know, I always tell people adversity is something that you have to fall in love with. And if you can learn to fall in love with adversity, it'll define you. You know, adversity defines you. Just stay away from controversy. So when I think about the team that I put together and why I'm so proud of them, you know, when we first came in here, the beginning of the year, we were met with 5 snowstorms. We had 30 trucks down, 21% of the manpower and Department of Public Works was down. We didn't have anything. The morale was at an all-time low. And so to be introduced to the mayor's office with 5 snowstorms, and then to have to deal with the whole Republican National Convention, then to have to deal with the fact that a young man got shot and murdered at Oliver School, to have to deal with the fact that we had to deal with the collapse of a bridge, the fact that we had to deal with the president coming the same day, the fact that we had to deal with Oakland Crossing, the fact that we had to deal with the Mont Oakland is a lot to have to incur in your first 40 days. That's a lot of adversity that you're met with. And as you can tell, I know I see ex-councilwoman Rudiak on here as well. Hello, and as y'all can tell that our transition was different, right? Because usually you can transition from May to January, which gives you the ability to be able to put the team together that you want to put together. But the reality is we didn't have from May to January. We had from November to January. And so when I think about the things that we were met with in 40 days, it's a privilege to be able to have the team that I have, the diversity that I have from a gender perspective and also from a race perspective. And so we're looking to continue to grow, but I need your help. You know, like a lot of times, I'm gonna be quite frank, a mayor will sit here and tell you what they expect from you. And I think that's wrong. I think that the reality is you should tell me what you expect from me to help you to empower what it is that you want to achieve. Because you're the wisdom. Like I tell you, I know a lot of smart people, but I'll follow the wisdom all day. And so you have been working at this, as this is your 4th year, you have been working at this for a while. The agenda that you put together should be one that we can sit down with and find out from a city perspective how we can empower that. Then that way we're growing together. It shouldn't be me coming in here telling you what I expect from you as if you haven't been doing it for 4 years. That would be backwards. My whole perspective is to sit down with you, talk to you, and find out how I can empower you. Listen, this city will not grow if we don't diversify in diversity and gender. It just won't grow. We can have success, and we have had success in life science. We have had success in artificial intelligence. We have had success in robotics. But the reality of this situation is success hasn't been growth because we're still dealing with a population loss. We're still dealing with a retention loss that we can recruit here through our great universities, but for whatever reasons, and we know the reasons, we can't get people to stay here. They don't feel like their culture is welcome here. We have to change that. And that's gonna come from all of us working together. We need to make sure that when people come here, they know that this is the safest, most welcoming and thriving area in the United States of America. And I believe we can get there because the states that I visited, the cities that I visited, they're already on board with that. They're moving forward with that. But what they don't have that we do have is they don't have the small city, big town mentality. You know, we're small enough to be able to come together and grow, and we're big enough to be able to empower our growth sector industries by ensuring that they're connected to our children in Pittsburgh Public Schools. We can do that. We can ensure that every development that we do from here on out meets with, as Deb Gross said, inclusionary zoning to ensure that affordability is throughout this region. In every sector of our growth economy, we should make sure that it's diverse and that we're thriving. That's the goals of us. That's our values. Not just as government, that's our values as a region. But that comes from us being together. And so now I'm gonna be quiet, and if there's any questions, I can listen. Ask me the questions. You know, I came here to be asked questions. The only way that we can grow is if we're communicating. And so I'm willing, now look, I'm gonna tell you the truth. If I don't know the answer, I'm gonna tell you I don't know. But if I don't know it, I'll find out for you. But I just thank you for having me here today, and I'll take any questions you may have.
Go ahead, Councilwoman Gross.
Thank you. Mayor Gainey, welcome, and we're so glad to have you with us today. It's an honor, and thank you for being here with us to celebrate. I also, I wanted to bring up one of the topics that Jesse was just touching on with our response to rebuilding a new normal. And it touched on a program that you were probably familiar with during your time at the Urban Redevelopment Authority Board, which was our investments in childcare operators, childcare parents and children, childcare workers, and the support and the investment in the social infrastructure in the city that we've been talking about now for years. Councilwoman Rudiak and I started working on this back in, I think, 2016, maybe it was even 2015. And we were really talking about it using those words that now the Biden administration is using, which was all of the investments that Pittsburgh was so good at doing in physical infrastructure for redevelopment and big developers. Can we do it for social infrastructure? And during that time, we allocated $2 million to childcare. And there was an additional pot of $250,000, Councilman, you might remember that in 2019, I moved to the URA. And during the pandemic in 2020, it was matched by PNC for $1.5 million dedicated just to childcare facilities and investments. And so, Mayor, I wanted to give you a chance to speak to that. We know that our most distressed neighborhoods are the ones where there's the most need for investments, so that working families have access to quality childcare. But it also supports the women-owned businesses in those neighborhoods, and it's a neighborhood investment. And I thought you might take some time to talk about how we can do more of that.
Well, you know, number one, Ms. Rudiak, I know that you put a lot of time and effort when you were on council. I know that you didn't get the credit that you deserved as everything moved forward. So let me recognize that first. Two, you know, I fought hard for childcare at the state level, and I will continue to do so as mayor. But let me talk about the silos in childcare. You know, we have the type of silos in childcare that we don't have an infrastructure. We have just silos. And if we don't find a way to get out of a silo environment when it comes to our childcare and make it more robust, then we're not doing nothing good for the child. And right now, I think it's a great opportunity to have this conversation with the level of violence that we're seeing in our neighborhoods. And I believe that right now, this is my, you know, and I'm gonna use me as an example. I tell people all the time, and, you know, I became an adult at 21, but I didn't become a man until I was 29. And when I see going on right now inside our communities and why childcare is so credible is that you see a lot of these young moms that may be adults, but haven't went over to the woman's side of their life yet. Not saying it ain't gonna happen, because I come from a young mother, I get it clearly. And I understand the power of childcare and what it did for me to create a village around me to help me to really understand what was going on. But those type of safety programs have been broken down. With the investments that President Biden is talking about, I think we have an opportunity. But it just can't be a program, that's the problem. If it's just a program, when the money runs out, then we're back to being siloed. It has to be a strategy to when we're talking about long-term investments to where we don't have to worry about the funding running out so we can have a robust program. That's always been the problem around childcare, is that it becomes so siloed that at the end of the day, we're fighting more for the kids than the investment in development of our children. We have to look at it from a different strategy point of view if we're really going to be effective. I'm willing to do that. And if that is something that y'all willing to work on, I'm willing to work with you. Matter of fact, me and the chief just had a conversation of how, I ain't saying it happened to me, let me be clear, but downtown, how we take a building and really talk about it from a child care perspective. That could be more than just child care, but could be developmental in regards to child care. Our parents need that, and I understand it.
Thank you,
Thank
Mayor.
you.
I don't have-
I'll let the other commissioners ask their questions. Appreciate Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, does anybody else have any other questions for Mayor? Mayor, I'm not sure how much time you have, but we
I got
truly-
time. I got time.
Oh, okay. All right now. Former Chair Nietrauer.
Good afternoon, Mayor. It's so nice to see you here with the Gender Equity Commission
Hey,
today.
man, how you doing?
I'm good. Thank you. Thank you. It's always good to see you.
Good to see you.
So my question for you is this. You know, those of us who followed your campaign know very well that you referenced the GEC report quite frequently in talking about that being part of your motivation for wanting to be mayor, because you understand the inequities that do and have existed here in Pittsburgh. And, you know, so you talked about that quite frequently. We know that that's something that's really important to you. And so, first of all, I appreciate you naming the members of the commission here as being experts, because they're very passionate about what they do know, and collectively it's a very powerful group. So I really appreciate you being explicit and talking about what it means to embrace the people who are here to support you in your work, acknowledging that they know what they know, and that you're approaching it from a place of humility in a way that many leaders don't. So I just wanted to acknowledge that, you coming here and saying, you know, I'm not going to tell you what to do. I want you to tell me what to do. With that, though, knowing how much the work of the GEC and the report inspired you, I would like to know, just from your perspective, you know, it doesn't have to be a policy. It doesn't even have to be, you know, any kind of answer, but I am curious to hear, you know, have you had a chance to think about how the GEC's work can most impact and support your goals, your overall goals, concerning equity moving forward for the city of Pittsburgh? If there's a word or a phrase or even a thought that you've had around specifically how you see the work of the GEC, how you see working with the GEC and supporting the overall vision that you have expressed so much for the city of Pittsburgh and being a more equitable and livable city. So it's very broad and general, but I really want to look at you.
So let me start with my office, because as I told my external partners, meaning the business community and everybody, that I can't ask you to do anything that I'm not willing to do myself. That's number one. So coming in, I made Lori my office manager, Pam my personal assistant, Felicity my chief of staff, Maria's running the press secretary. We have begun, and we're not even built out all the way, but we have already started to put women in positions of power. And not just the power, because a title gives you power, but it doesn't mean it gives you authority. See, a lot of times people become positional in their position, but they don't understand that your positional power only gives you what the title allows you to do. Authority is a different level. Authority gives you the ability to be able to strategically plan in a way that demonstrates your skill sets and how you empower others. So I couldn't ask the external to do what I was not willing to do myself. That's number one. Number two was that you referenced the report. So let me tell you how I saw the report, right? Every time there's a report that's put out about Black and brown and women, it's always negative. It's always, we can go back 20 years, every report that puts out, it's like we promote negativity. And what you promote, you become. And I'm so tired of promoting things that give us a lens of negativity that we believe that this is all we can be and here's what we are. That's a lie. There are a lot of great women in this city doing phenomenal work. Phenomenal. It's not If you want to build, you don't build from the negative, you build from the positive. You don't have to continue to remind us what condition our community is in without talking about the institutional barriers of racism that has kept us here, because through the years, we're the only city of 15 major metropolitan cities that don't have a middle class black or brown neighborhood. That's not by accident, that's by design. If you want to talk about the negative, start there and then build to the positive. But to continue to deepen the conversation of the negativity of these neighborhoods without giving a blueprint to how we get better is only reinforcing our negativity, which I thought was wrong. I believe that if you're going to build, you build from a position of power. And so you look around at the brilliant women that are out here doing marvelous things, and you build from that. We got women in artificial intelligence. We got women in life science. We got women in high tech and cybersecurity. We have that. The report that issued didn't talk about how far we've come, even though we got a long way to go. It only focused on what all the rest of them focused on. Negativity. Worst place in America for Black women. Why didn't we say we're gonna make it the best for Black women? Why didn't we highlight it in a narrative that shows that we're ready to grow instead of holding on to a past that means nothing? If we're gonna grow up, it's because we celebrate culture. Not continue to talk about why it is the way that it is. There's a whole lot of reasons why it is the way it is. And as long as that's our conversation, we can't grow. Status quo can't grow. And we have to stop those conversations and begin to talk about, from a building block, how well women are doing in this region and what we have to do to continue the growth. That's how you get there. But you definitely don't get there marketing negativity. I never seen it grow, have you?
Thank you. Thank you for that question, Amanda. Any other questions for our mayor? Feel free to unmute. I know I gotta marinate with everything he just said. I'm over here writing down quotes. But we need to translate talk into action. Janet, I see you unmuted. Go ahead.
Hi, Mayor Gainey. This is Janet.
Hi, Janet. How you doing?
I'm doing well, sir. Thank you so much again for taking time out of your busy schedule. Thank you for saying what you just did, because that echoed my portion of our birthday celebration about the report, where we were talking about the positive things that we're going to do to address the issues and not just stay stagnant. So we appreciate that. I have a question, because the questions have been asked of me since I work for the city, and thank you for retaining me in my role. I appreciate it. There is the opening of the executive director for the Gender Equity Commission. Are you able to speak to that and what your vision might be for that role?
Yeah, so to a small degree, right?
Yeah.
I had someone that I had been talking to all summer long about the gender equity report. Goes by the name of Morgan Overton. And so coming in, I had a theory that she would be a great fit. But I soon learned that somebody beat me to that punch, and is bringing her in under another department. So if I seem a little disappointed, I just don't like to be beaten to the punch. But I know her and Lisa Frank is in conversation in regards to her joining that side of the aisle with Lisa. So Lisa beat me to the punch right there. But the reason why I was focused on Morgan is because a lot of the questions that I needed answered, she answered. A lot of times where I was trying to see the report, because the report frustrated me a little bit, and I just shared it with you why. And so when I would hear her talk or speak or her communicate with me about how everything transpired, she allowed me to see the depth of her knowledge in regards to understanding the Gender Equity Commission, the report, and everything else. And like I said, I believe in smart people, but I follow the wise. So understanding that she had a deep understanding of exactly what was going on, to me, made her a great choice. But like I said, I lost that. And to be honest with you, Janet, I haven't had a conversation with my team since then. So that's something that we have to revisit, and maybe that again help me. Y'all, you know who should be that executive director. I just ask that is somebody with a growth mindset. I don't need a smart person, I need a wise person. I need someone that knows how to grow it. I was sharing with a couple of people a minute ago, I don't want to talk program, I want to talk strategy. Programs run out of money, strategy gets you more. And so I need y'all to focus on whoever you send me, that they're prepared to think about how you grow gender and equity, because at the end of the day, that's what will grow the city.
Thank you.
Thank you, Janet. Yes, Mark. Okay. Go ahead, Kalani.
Hello, everyone. Hello, Mayor Gainey. Thank you.
Hello, how you doing?
I'm doing well. Thank you for joining us today. And it's such an honor to be back as an ex-commissioner. I kind of want to address your concerns about the report, Mayor. And just because I was on the committee when we worked so hard to put that report together. And the reason I want to address it is because there are many people who had the same concern. And while I completely understand, however, there's a thing that happens where the burden of proof is often put on the people who are doing the work to further their own forward movement, I guess, in a city. So you have to prove it to people first. And this is from everyone from government to foundations to anyone with money or power. You have to prove first that you need the help. A lot of times, communities like women, people of color, they aren't believed right away until there is proof, data. You have to do the research and show them why you need the help, right? And I'm all for focusing on the positive, but that is just something that we are all too familiar with. And I think why the report was so important to show from a governmental perspective why we need the help that we need. With that said, what will your administration do so that when things like this come up where we're saying these are the issues, this is what we need, we shouldn't have to go through all of this to prove what we need from our government or from the community or from the public, just give us what we need. How will we be able to come to you and approach to make sure that those things happen without having to go through the hoops and the other things to prove that it's a problem?
Yeah,
or how we make those,
That's a great question. And I think there's a couple ways, but I'm not going to sit here and say that I have all the answers, right? I think that us continuing to talk gives me the answers. One is that I said this before, I have to demonstrate it internally first. Like, if I don't put women of power, women in positions of power and authority, then I can't ask nobody else to do it. Because they're going to look at my administration and say, what do you see? Lisa Frank, Chief Operating Officer. There's a lot that we've put in place to be able to highlight and show. Secondly, that's number one. So I'm doing it internally and I'm not done yet. I'm still moving forward on what we have to do, but I'm not in a rush to do it. I just want to execute at a way that puts people in position to win. I believe that if you put people in position and they're not in positions to win, then you get a failure. That's number one. Number two is that the next time this comes up in regards, what does women need in order to advance, then the whole strategy should not be on how bad it is, because there's enough reports out there to speak to that, right? There's enough, you got some point that the chambers put out, there's another report that Ralph Banks put out. Like, we got enough reports that speak directly to that. What we don't get is how you build that bridge. What we don't get is what programs are necessary, what strategies are necessary to ensure that we're putting people in position to win, putting people in position to be in front of diverse boards, going to some of my corporate sponsors, and when I walk in there and we begin to have these, so obviously this already happened, right? And we begin to have this conversation with your executive management team, that if no one in that room looks like me, is not a woman, a Black woman, brown woman, they don't look any reflective of the diversity that you see when I enter that room, then we can't really have a conversation about diversity, because you're not real about it. See, if you was real about it, I wouldn't have to come in here and not see something that's reflective of what you say you believe in. And so when they come in this office, they see that. They see it immediately. Because that's what I want the outside world to see. So I'm going to model that for them. How else can we get there? We got some of the greatest universities in this region. They're an asset, but the asset has to be able to reflect the investment that they want in return. So there's always ways that we can do it, but that's what I'm saying, that we got to do it together. Those are just ways I know. But here's why you know more than me and why I will take your solutions above mine, because you're a woman. And so because you're a woman, you know exactly what you need. I shouldn't be able to tell you that. I should be able to listen and be able to deliver that deliverable.
Thank you so much.
And Marcia, go ahead.
Thank you. And thank you so much, Mayor Gainey, for coming in and taking our questions. I so appreciate it. I just wanted to take it one step further. I recognize and appreciate your frustration with that report. It was obviously sent to us many, many times. But the piece that keeps coming up missing is the fact that the report was not complete. Because it was done based on just public information, there was not information there about many of the communities that are struggling here in Pittsburgh, like the LGBTQ or the transgender communities or the Hispanic communities or the Bhutanese or all these other communities. And what our goal had been was to reach out to these communities as well as the ones that were highlighted in the report, and understand, number one, are these your issues also? And secondly is, of these issues, which ones, what solutions would you come up with, and which ones would you prioritize? Because I think that's so important, since we always have limited funding, is to understand that. So I understand your frustration. COVID hit and a number of other things happened, and the rest of the reports just never were able to get done. So I'm excited about you being in the position that you're in right now. And I'm excited about the administration that you're putting in place. And I hope that we can continue to pursue this. And I'm thrilled with what the Gender Equity Commission has been doing for the last couple of years. It's been phenomenal.
Yeah, I agree. I think that, first, thank you. I appreciate that. I didn't realize that the report wasn't completed. Morgan told me the report wasn't completed. And so I had a different take once I realized that, but the way that it was marketed, the narrative of it was that this is done, this is where we're at, here's who Black Pittsburgh is. It's not who we are.
Right.
It's not. And as someone that's been here my whole life and has had to deal with all these negative reports, Marcia, sometimes you get tired of that. And you get tired of being put in a situation where, like I tell people, I don't need you to feel sympathy for me nor empathy. I don't need none of that. I need you to empower me. I need you to give me opportunity and access to opportunity. And as a region, we have not done that. So every neighborhood that looks like me is living in poverty. And all I hear is that's a shame, but we can write it in the report. We can double down on that. And without me understanding that the report wasn't complete, I'm thinking about the impact that it has in my community. Because I don't want nobody that look like me to feel like you a liability. You an asset just like everybody else in this city. And you never furnish a report that is not complete. Because an incomplete report allows people to take it to where they want to go. And that's not going to make this city feel, that doesn't inspire nobody.
Right.
If anything, that hurts. That's painful to say that every community is living in poverty. The worst place for Black women in the city, in the way that it was put out, not by y'all, but from others, not by y'all, I'll say that right now, is it was, look at this report. Look how horrible it is here. Wow. That's how we want to market this.
Right.
And everything that look like me is horrible. I'm looking at Black women on this monitor right now. They don't look horrible to me. And so I think that we just have to think about how we're marketing us. There's only one city. We are all part of this city. In growth sector cities, that report never comes out. But yet it can continue to come out here. It can continue to be reiterated in a way that doesn't express how we enjoy this city, doesn't express the love we have for all of our communities, but express how bad one is. I don't see any growth in that. I don't even see success. But I didn't really understand that the report wasn't finished. So it made me go back and reevaluate, like, okay, well, the report wasn't finished. Maybe there's some recommendations that's going to come out. And so that's why you heard me open up and say, I want to hear from you. Now, we don't have to have 21 questions or 21, but we should have one or two things of low-hanging fruit that we can build momentum. I'm willing to do that. Matter of fact, I'm committed to it. But I don't want to continue to read reports from the business community, the nonprofit community, the activist community, about how poor it is here for Black people. You can't attract nobody with that lyric.
Yep. I agree. Thank you.
Amanda, do you have your hand up? Yep, go ahead.
Quick, because I've taken up space already. Mayor, I just wanted to say that your frustration is felt. On a personal note, I was almost 9 months pregnant when that report came out. And as you heard, one of the indicators was about Black women and infant mortality. And so, you know, at the time I was first vice chair, I think. Anyway, and showed up every month to do the work because we all do believe in this city and know that it can be better. Absolutely. And we want it to be better. So I just want you to know that the frustrations that you are voicing is shared by everyone in this space, which is why we show up every month and in between meetings and serve on 5 different committees. And I just want you to know that though that big report was incomplete, we do have the 2020 equitable new normal recommendations. We do have the report from the Workforce Equity Committee outlining very real steps that we want to take, have taken, and need to take to address the labor, racist and sexist labor issues here in Pittsburgh. And there's many things that members of this commission want to do. And so I just want you to know that we have, you know, because I've stepped down, of course, to take care of my family, as you know, but the spirit of this group is very much about, there's so much that this group wants to do. And so hearing your passion, hearing your frustration and how in the narrative, we are here to change that narrative. And you being here with us today means a lot because we are going to rely on you and your administration to remove those obstacles to changing the narrative. And so just thank you so much. You know, since you were real with us, I wanted to be real with you for a second.
No, I appreciate that.
I know that's how you do.
Yeah, you know, I appreciate it. But let me say this, you know, and I don't want it to come out as frustration. I think that for me, you know, being here all my life, that you just get tired. You know, like every report that comes out about, you know, Black people is, you know, there's not one positive report in this city that was furnished that's about Black people. Let's just put a period right there. That's deep all by itself.
Go ahead, Lee.
Lee, I think
Muted,
you're
Lee. You're muted.
It's not okay. Thank you for coming, Mayor. This is Lee Fogarty. I was in your district, and when you began to run, we talked about the Gender Equity Commission and what was going on with it. And I really appreciated that. And I think what you're emphasizing is really important. And well, I was on the commission in the beginning, but I think what the commission really needs is to know that you're saying now that they have your support in doing this, and you will do things to help this happen, because we were very frustrated because we couldn't do some things. And I'm really looking forward to how they can go forward with this, because they're very competent women. There are a lot of us supporting them. And with your support, I think a lot more can be accomplished. So thank you for offering that. And we'll call on you.
Lee, I thank you. And you know, let me say that. That's why I said that, you know, the executive director role, you know,
it's important.
Yeah, but you know, what I've learned is that the one that's most effective is the one that comes from that impacted community. Right. So I think that, you know, and I don't want to say that I'm just leaving it to the group, but it's just my belief that probably the executive director is somewhere in your group. Because they know the history of it. I don't know who that is, but I'll take recommendations.
Great, great. Thank you on that.
Natalia?
Before I get off, since I was still on there for a minute, you know, when the report came out and the communities who were affected were upset about it, you may not know this, but we met with them many times and talked a lot of this through, and we were just getting to a place of being able to go forward when, you know, things got shut down. So this commission really does that kind of work.
All right, thank you.
Natalia, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you so much, Mayor. I'm happy that I can call you Mayor Gainey for the first time. You hear me saying that out loud. Happy that you're here. Yeah, this is the first time I've stopped by the GEC in a couple of years. I'm really excited to see everybody here. This is honestly, like, what you have in front of you are like no words, just like the most whip smart, dedicated public servants who understand how city government works and how the power of city government can be leveraged to do exactly what I think the mission of your administration is. And I think you know that. I know you know that, but I just want to reiterate that. And any meeting that you or your staff attend, I think you'll be blown away. I also just want to state, and I mentioned this earlier, you know, I want to be cautious too of relegating all of women's issues as women's work. I think it's really, really important that we have, whether it's attendance, whether it's buy-in, whether it's money, whether it is, you know, a shared sense of vision and accomplishment with your male staff and male colleagues. When we first began the process of legislating the Gender Equity Commission, we had a massive public hearing in support of this, and only the female council members showed up. Only the female council members showed up. And the stories were so poignant. I mean, I was practically in tears. Like, we had we had people calling in and everything. And so we really need the men of the city to show up too, and do the work too. Similarly, right, about how we need white people to show up in anti-racist work. We need men to show up in anti-sexist work. And so we need to do this together. And I would actually ask that, you know, we'll get this commission moving, and I'm happy to continue working with you all in some capacity. But if I don't know if this is appropriate, but I'm gonna maybe give some homework. It's super simple. But Mayor, if at some point during the next week, you could type in Google the simple term gender mainstreaming.
Say that again.
And gender mainstreaming, like mainstream, yeah, gender mainstreaming. It's about how to integrate gender into policymaking. And I think it is when we talk about the positives and how to build on our assets and how to build on our strengths, that's what we're here to do. And again, the commission put out a report around violence and COVID-19, which the recommendations are there if you want that low-hanging fruit. But when we talk about the ARPA funding coming down, when we talk about the ILJA infrastructure funding coming down, when we talk about the Parks Conservancy park tax funding coming through, all of these, it would be really important to have some kind of gender component, intersectional gender component. And you missed me saying this earlier, but if we build this city we should be building this city for 12-year-old girls. Because if we build this city with the 12-year-old girl in mind, this city will be safe for everybody. A 12-year-old Black girl, 12-year-old disabled girl, 12-year-old immigrant girl, 12-year-old trans girl. If we build this city for that girl, whether it's in parks, whether it's in public safety, whether it's in public works, whether it's streetlights, whether it's crosswalks, whether it's the social worker that stops by, or the investigative units investigating crimes and tending to people suffering. We need to make sure that women and girls are incorporated in every step of that equation, because we're invisible most of the time, and it's almost hard to see how much the city is built for men, of men, by men. And hopefully once gender mainstreaming, check it out. I think you'll find it really interesting, because I think you love this stuff just as much as any of us love it, and that's why you're here, and that's why you're in this role, and that's why you're so inspiring. So just hope that you and your administrative staff can continue to work with us.
To tell you, I'll be honest with you. One, I agree. So I'm gonna share something with you, right? I share this with my team. When I first won the primary, the business community was, who is Allegheny? Who is this Allegheny? What is he? Because I didn't make it a habit, and this, and say I didn't hang out downtown. Like I didn't see the fruit for myself to hang out downtown. I wasn't in the professional networkings and all that other stuff. I just went there. I just went back to my neighborhood, just because that's where I wanted to make a difference, to be quite frank with you. And so, I told my team when I go in there to talk to these corporations, and I'm gonna bring up the whole situation about diversity, race, and women power. And to be quite frank, I was nervous. We can all sit here and be like, well, you just go in there and say it. I mean, we can all talk that talk, and it sounds real good, but at the end of the day, it really don't mean that. Because you got to go in there thinking about how you can be strategic, not tough. Like most tough people I know ain't really tough. So going in there to talk tough, I don't see what that ever got accomplished. But going in there being strategic and talking about why this is needed, because it's in their interest. Like to tell you was on city council, so I know you know this. No, there's a difference between issues and interests. Everybody can talk about issues. Same issues they was talking about in the 60s, they talking about in 2022. That's deep all by itself. There's a difference when you talk about interests. Because when you talk about interest, you expect a rate of return on your investment. And so it talks about how you polish the asset, not how you look at it from a liability standpoint. And so a lot of these people that I wanted to go see, Natalia, to be honest, I know this because this is what I used to ask them in Harrisburg when I was a state rep, before I could even understand whether we could do business or whether you was going to respect me for being a Black man. How many, growing up, I would ask them, older white men, how many Black or Latino or Asian teachers have you had growing up? And if you never had a Black, Latino, or Asian teacher growing up, and you've never had a teacher of authority be able to teach you anything, so I know you already feel you can't learn from me. But once I understood how to turn that into an interest, right? How to turn it into an interest. Now I can go into some of those corporate boardrooms, though I'm nervous, be honest, nervous and scared at times, and say to them that if you don't really believe in diversifying your portfolio when it comes to your employees and your executive management team, right now, you will not be competitive in 20 years. It's impossible in the midst of globalization for you to still look like yesterday when you know that the new America has arrived. And if you don't look at Black, brown, and Latino women as a way to advance your products, if you don't look at minorities as a way to advance your organization, business, or corporation, you will not be competitive in 30 years. There will not be a return on your investment, because at the end of the day, no one's going to do business with who they don't feel comfortable with. And so being able to speak that from an interest standpoint and not an issue standpoint gets them to open their mind and say that sometimes if we're going to be competitive on a global, for instance, I'm not going to say no names. I know a corporation right now that if I go to Philadelphia and look at their executive management team, I'm going to see people that look like me. But in Pittsburgh, I don't see that. Wow. Because the interest is different. They know they got to do business. And so me going in there and saying, listen, I'm going to show you what I mean first, but then I'm going to expect you to follow that lead. Because if you don't, then we still don't have access to opportunity. And I tell you, you know, like I know, if we don't have access to opportunity, you can't grow. If your management team is all white males, how am I your interest? And if I'm not your interest, what rate of return am I getting? Matter of fact, what are you getting? And more importantly, what does this city get? So I've had to learn how to talk from moving it from an issue to an interest, but also allowing myself to be vulnerable enough to tell myself it's all right to be nervous when you go in there. But it's also how you state what you want. So what I told him, I'll go first. Let me build out my team so you can see it. So the next time I come back in here, I can make it a conversation of interest for the betterment of this city.
Thank you so much, Mayor Gainey. And I think I can speak for everyone in this virtual room that having this conversation is refreshing. I mean, I think this is giving us the energy for us to push forward in the face of adversity and confronting that deficit mindset, right? Because all of us already came in with a growth mindset, right? We already came in with a service mindset. And we champion the people who represent solutions, right? And this is thankless work. You know, each of us outside of the commission show up and give 100% to our respective roles in community, as family members, in our work, confronted with a pandemic. And then we come to the Gender Equity Commission because we love Pittsburgh and we believe in Pittsburgh. This is my hometown. And I do not want to, right, like I do not want this city to be known as the worst place for me to live, for my future children to live. And we're not trying to have surface level solutions that only check boxes. We are trying to address systemic issues at the root. And we know it's not going to happen overnight. And we know that we might not even see the fruits of our labor, but this is for the next generation. So knowing that we have your support and your administration support gives us the foundation to move forward and finish what we started. And so when it comes to our report, I mean, unfortunately to the community, it may seem like it was complete, but we have to keep reiterating, like you say, Mayor, we need your help. We need the community because we can't go anywhere without community. And as Amanda said earlier, we thank you and acknowledge that you recognize us as experts, but we also recognize that the community are experts of their lived experience and can't a PhD or nothing, you know, trump that. Your lived experience is what informs our work, and knowing that we have your back, this gives me energy to just go out there and do it. Yeah. And as you said, let's go get it, right? So we truly appreciate it.
Every day.
Every day.
Every day.
I don't know if you had any parting words for us. Of course, you know, this is the start of a conversation. We're going to have many conversations, but that's going to translate into action. That's the main thing.
I just want to say thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to speak to you, and I just want to say thank you.
Thank you. And we look forward to the next conversation. So we'll be in touch. You know, I'll be in touch.
Right. Hey, I look forward to it, and I look forward to speaking to you again. Have a great evening.
Thank you, Mayor. Take
Thank
care.
you.
Whew. I definitely feel like I need to take a breath after that because, like I said, this is the energy that we need in Pittsburgh, and it's here, right? As the mayor said, we can't have a deficit mindset. There are brilliant people on this call alone that give me hope for this city. And we are way past schedule. And I think it's worth it that we were past schedule because we can't do this work without our mayor, right? We can't do it without city council. And so these are the conversations and real conversations that need to be had. You know, we can't just give platitudes, pat people on the head. People are tired and people are ready to know that we are here to champion their lived experience and translate it into real change so that this isn't a cyclical conversation, right? By the time we have our 5th birthday, I want us to have a whole other mindset, whole other conversation, and some cake on top of it, right? So hopefully y'all are available. I know 5 o'clock is right around the corner. I do want to finish our conversation with our past chairs. And then I know our past commissioners are on the call with us, and I definitely want them to be able to speak too. So with all that being said, I'm going to pass it back to Second Vice Chair Hanson. Go on ahead and take us back to our conversation.
Thank you. Thank you. Jesse, I know you were interrupted briefly. Was there a final sentence that you wanted to say to wrap up your piece?
Thank you. Yeah, Sarah, I think you had just asked me, you know, what are the most important things on that list? And I had started by reading out the list so that we could be reminded of that work. So thank you for that opportunity. I was just going to name actually desegregated data, disaggregated data, which just as Natalia has been talking about, and we've been talking about, we can't fix it if we can't understand the impacts in every dollar spent from the city, in every program, in every policy impact. So I think if I had to answer what is the lowest hanging fruit or the most important or where we ought to start, I was going to start talking again about disaggregated data and childcare, which a number of us have already brought back to the front of our minds, just so top of mind during COVID. So I think those are two places where Pittsburgh really can be a leader. And I'd love for us to keep thinking about where we can lead, not just where we're doing poorly, but where we can lead. And I think those are a couple places where we could do it.
And they both tie so clearly to what we were just talking about understanding, appreciating, and acting on the lived experiences of our community members. So thank you so much, Commissioner Ramey. And now I will turn to past Chair Amanda Nietrauer and ask you, building from that question, in what ways has the GEC worked to translate steps from the 2019 and 2020 reports into action? I welcome your overall thoughts. And also, as Commissioner Manuel mentioned, you were one of the originators of the Workforce Equity Committee. So if you would like to speak specifically about that work as well, why was it important to start there?
Thank you. You hear the family in the background. Hi, yes, dear. Hi, baby. Yes, see, motherhood doesn't care. So to your question, I think that number one, what I do appreciate about the commission is, and I do think that Commissioner Ramey touched on this earlier, that as a group, as a commission, it has never allowed circumstances to stop progress. Also, I feel like the commission has been very intentional about taking pauses when needed and to really think, stop, pivot, what is in front of us, what is doable. Really, what I appreciate the most is how intentional I think this commission has been. And so I know that this is not a policy. One of the things I'm actually proudest of is our grounding principles. And the reason why I'm bringing this up is because as a commission, our value set and our motivation has always been in discussion. And what I really appreciate is how explicit we have been in talking about inequities and how dehumanizing they are. And how not only do we approach work differently because of our lived experiences and what we are trying to do and what we have tried to do, be very intentional about the intersectional lens, and that, as you know, our current acting chair has stated, we're volunteers. And so if this body burns itself out, what work will get done? COVID has shined a light and really the disparities, existing disparities, as you've stated in your question, it touches all of us. And we've been very honest and explicit about that. So I am extremely proud actually of the grounding principles of what our values are, and being explicit in that, and understanding that everything that we do stems from that. Everything that we do is inspired by that we have to take care of ourselves. We have to take care of each other. We have to work collectively. We have to highlight and uphold the leaders in the community who are the experts in what they do. That not only do we have to step up when needed, we also have to humble ourselves when needed. And so that is, for me, I'm very proud of that, because we know that many organizations, many groups, many commissions, many task forces do not operate that way. They go in, and I'm just going to be they go in and slash and burn basically and say, this is what you do. And we know that lack of intent is what causes a lot of the gaps to widen, and it just supports and furthers the existing inequities. And so with that, you know, the work that we've done, you know, and I'll speak to just the workforce equity work specifically. You know, we have been intentional about looking at the 2019 report, looking at, as Marcia has mentioned several times, how can we complete it? What are ways that we can do it? We haven't stopped the conversations on that. We've kept the conversations going. We talk about the future. We talk about the aspirations, and we keep going. When partners have been inspired by the report, whether they have reached out or we have reached out to them, this commission has been very intentional about connecting with the community and connecting with those partners. Speaking specifically through the lens of the workforce equity work, and you know how that came about and why that is so important, and also how that touches on what I've just mentioned, that you know we knew even before the report came out, you know, we were given a charge by the former mayor to look at what other cities have done and are doing. And you know, I personally, and I know others in this room, do not believe in reinventing the wheel. That if good work has already been done, you build on that good work. You know, many of us in this space know that workforce equity is a major component to the existing inequities that exist in our city and our region. Everything from policies that, whether intentional or not, create inequities. They create barriers to promotion, they create barriers to hiring, they create barriers to equitable income, which has a direct impact on not just the many women and women identified persons in this city. There are families, especially because many of them who are single heads of households are in or below the quote poverty line, and the children that suffer as a result, and the resulting economic disparities, and how Pittsburgh is losing income because of it, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So we knew that, and then the 2019 report just really buoyed it. And so, you know, that is one example, I think, of how intentional this commission has been in being mindful about what projects, what policies that they put their energy behind. And I'll just say lastly, you know, to speaking to community and the importance of community and how mindful and intentional we are. Janet mentioned earlier that with the Workforce Equity Committee's work around salary negotiation, the three-pronged approach, noting that, yes, we can empower people to speak on their own behalf, and businesses have to do their part, and government has to do its part, and we have to engage community. because the concrete ceiling that Black women, other women, and other people, and glass ceilings that they face with wages and opportunities, there's only so much self-advocacy you can do. So while we're currently supporting that, what's exciting is we have other community partners, like the Women and Girls Foundation, the YWCA, Black Women's Policy Agenda, who have convened community partners. And so what happened is our work inspired, quite frankly, the second prong of the three-pronged approach. And so because we're so intentional, you know, unlike some other bodies, we didn't say, oh, that's our work. No, it's the community's work. And somebody has taken the charge and they're leaders, so they elevated it and they said, we want to work with you because our work was inspired by you. And as a result, Janet, the current chair of the Workforce Equity Committee, is serving on that. And I, as the former chair and someone who has dedicated the last several years of their life to workforce equity, has been asked to stay in whatever capacity I can manage. And so I guess just what I'm trying to say, Sarah, is that for me, it's not a singular policy. For me, it's not a singular practice. For me, this commission, it's all about their mindfulness and how intentional it has been in highlighting and elevating what needs to be done, however it needs to be done, and uplifting the leaders, whoever they happen to be, whether it's us or somebody else. And that is something that I truly hope other people model. As Jesse stated, we are aimed to be leaders. And that is a way of leading. If you're gonna deal with social justice issues, you have to be intentional about having a social justice lens. And that is what I'm most proud of this commission. So I know that I didn't directly answer your question, but that's what it inspired for me. And that is what I'm most proud of is for the legacy of this group.
Thank you so much. I know that we're coming right up at 5 and we did want to hear from our additional commissioners. So current acting chair Overton, I'm going to ask this question of you and very much respect if you hold it until your closing remarks. Please feel welcome. I'm going to ask you this question and essentially say you're the MC, take over. Your question is that we've heard from our past chairs about the critical and intentional work that has been built over these past 4 years. And we've heard from Mayor Gainey about how his vision is coming in and what he's hoping can be accomplished in the coming years. So as we're headed towards year 5, as part of a historical and history-making mayoral administration, what are the implications for moving the work forward? Why does it matter that we continue, as Amanda said, to have an intentional intersectional social justice lens to support this work and that we look at policy and practice?
Ooh, well, I feel like Amanda hit on so many notes, and I'll keep it brief. But I think in order to keep this work moving, we need to be scholars of history, right? Like we need to know what the blueprints of what works and what not to repeat, right? And I think we must also continue to recognize our role in this work for gender equity alongside, you know, the many others that have been on the front lines of this work for decades, right? Who else is doing this work? How do we not step on their toes? How do we not continue to perpetuate silos? But then we also have the unique position of being nestled in city government and have commissioners that represent community. And with the government piece comes power and opportunity. So, you know, we can't continue to work on a bubble and we haven't. So it's just a matter of reinforcing to everybody that we need their help. And we're grateful to have a mayor that really champions the true essence of community and the unifiedness of community and the beauty of diversity within that. And without that informing our work, without that informing policy, it's what I said before. We're going to have cyclical conversations. We're going to have continuous reports, not even by us, just, you know, the nature of how Pittsburgh has operated. And as the mayor said, status quo don't grow. And we're here to be disruptors of that, whether you like it or not. So I'm excited moving on for year 5. I think I went on my little tangent before we continued our panel earlier. And I know you had an additional question about a phrase moving forward to inform our work. And I wholeheartedly, with my whole chest, say, listen to Black women. That is what informs me. That is my guiding light. That should be everybody's guiding light, especially after our report. And Angela Davis has this quote that is like my philosophy, that when Black women win victories, it is a boost for virtually every segment of society. Everybody wins. When you address issues for the most impacted, everybody wins across Pittsburgh, right? So we are uplifting everyone in our work in this intersectional work for gender justice. And as you said, Sarah, I know we are past 5 o'clock, so we appreciate everybody. I know you're probably all hungry and ready for dinner, but we appreciate our past chairs for joining us and providing that that lens of how the commission has been trucking forward in the midst of a pandemic, right? But we brought our past commissioners on for a reason. Y'all have been hanging on these past 2 hours and we appreciate you, but y'all were also pivotal in the start of this commission. So I have just 2 questions for you. We're gonna do like a round robin. And I would love you to just first introduce your name, your pronouns, when you served on the commission, and how have you been impacted by the Gender Equity Commission? And similar to my first question with our first panel, is there a priority that you would love the commission to address? And I'm going to start with Kalani because I just love how she's styling and profiling today. It's
I was not prepared for that. Thank you, Morgan.
Go for it.
Again, it is just such a pleasure to be back, and more than you guys can know and understand, so many people who have impacted me on this call right now. So I'm Kalani Jasmine. I am the founder of Black Tech Nation and now new partner at Black Tech Nation Ventures. And I started on the commission at its inception. And I left the commission September of 2019. No, it was 2020. It was definitely during the pandemic. So sorry, September 2020 is when I made my exit. And it's funny, like when you talk about the impact. So we talk a lot about how the Gender Equity Commission, it has impacted, our work has impacted the community, but I don't think we talk about how being a part of this committee, how we've impacted each other, and how close so many of us had gotten when we first started all of this, the hours and hours and hours of work and calls and effort to be in a room with such prestigious women. I remember I kind of fanned out when Ms. Jensen was on the board with us, and with her role at YWCA, and just all of these amazing people who I had never served on a board before, especially at this level with such a historical meaning towards it. And so for me to learn from the many women on this call, to then take into my work and now my impact that I will now have on other women, especially when we talk about funding for businesses and in the tech space, and like being able to influence even the people who work for me. I've told a couple women, like, you need to ask me for more money, like for your pay. Like literally I've had this conversation with women because they don't even know that they should be asking for more. So I like stop them, like, wait, okay, so you're not asking for enough right now. And that is in direct response to just the things that I learned and how much I was impacted by the women on this commission. So the work is inside the commission and outside the commission. So I just want to hand clap to everybody who was a part of this commission from its beginning to right now. And I'm so looking forward to the work that you all will continue to carry the torch to do. As far as what I want to see in the future, take that gender equity report. I know we did not get to finish it in its full scope that we wanted to. I know how, again, I have to say just how hard we worked on that, and whatever people's opinions are, at the end of the day, we are a group of women who care about women and gender equity, and we all put our blood, sweat, and tears into making that report happen. Didn't get it to finish it in its full scope, which there were a lot of more things that, you know, would have probably addressed a lot of the concerns, but we'll leave that there. We all know how I feel about that. So with that said, I hope that you all take everything from that report and actually, hold people to the, if, people who didn't quite like how it happened, all right, let's work together and hold everyone to the fire so that we can fix everything, so that when the next report comes out, we aren't complaining that it says the same things. Let's actually make the work happen and do the stuff. So I am rooting for you guys as you all continue to lead that charge. And I will stop there.
Thank you. Yes, I'm here for all of it. And you lifted up Miss Jensen, and I would love for you to share with us when you were on the commission, and how has this commission impacted you, and what would you like for us to address moving forward?
Well, it's a pleasure to be here. I want to thank everybody who's continued the work. It's so important. I was on the inaugural group on the commission, and my slot was tied to my role at the YWCA. It was a slot defined for a woman running a women's organization. And so in June of 2018, when I retired from the YWCA, I had to step down because I no longer had the requirement to stay there. But, and I will just say, by the way, I'm back in the city working temporarily. I'm the interim CEO of Community Human Services Corporation, which houses almost 1,000 homeless people and has an LGBTQIA+ program, as well as Early Head Start. I have an issue that I'm very passionate about, and I have to say the pandemic has just revved it up. Back at the YW, we did a big study and actually a TV talk show on closing the gap, 50 years seeking equal pay. And the question was, why did we get stuck? And well, we were stuck for about 15 years at the same pay equity. And it's very cultural, in my opinion. It has to do with a lot of our own perceptions of ourselves and men's perceptions, and whose responsibility is to take care of children and parents. And as a consequence, jobs that women take or don't take surround that, and has to do with pay. And in addition, the gift that keeps on giving, the flip is the punishment for low pay keeps on punishing you into retirement. So I'm very passionate about it. But childcare is, to me, the biggest issue of our time. And it was driven home during the pandemic. I heard last week there are now 1 million less women in the workforce. And we know why, because childcare closed down, people wouldn't go, and now it's not available. And if you're a single parent, you can't afford it. So from my point of view, from not only gender equity, a workforce equity, a really, really critical issue is childcare, access to it, and support for it, because we're not going to get anywhere unless we deal with that. That's it.
Thank you. Lee Fogarty, I know you shared some comments earlier, but we love to hear from you again. Same question to you.
Well, it's really nice to be here and see all of you again after all this time. And next time it will be in person, hopefully. I was in the inaugural group. I had the Pittsburgh, the City for CETA in Pittsburgh slot. So I was working on this with Marcia beforehand and with Natalia, and then came in, and we were really smart when we wrote the ordinance. Is we wrote a seat for Cities for CETA all the time, so that we will be carrying some of the history through of how this happened, and it won't get forgotten, which happens with women, right? We forget what happened. I had a great time being on it, made friends, and a lot of people that I hope to see now that we're out seeing, and some that I saw during it. I was also asked to join the advisory board of the National Cities for CETA group, and I will tell you, they talk all the time about it, what a phenomenal job Pittsburgh did. And including, I helped start a group in Toledo, and they just, on International Women's Day, they just got their ordinance passed. And one of the things they would like to do is connect with you all, because we're the only groups that are sort of in middle America. It's Cincinnati and Toledo, and I think Toledo has a resolution by Cincinnati and Toledo. And so they really want to work on how can we work on issues that are different from the coastal issue kinds of things. So I just wrote you an email, Morgan, so you can look at that and see what you think. The other thing is the international group is focusing a whole lot on climate change and its effect on women. And so that's, I think, a really big issue that covers so much of what we're trying to do and how people are affected and how women are always affected more during, just like during the pandemic, it's by climate change. We just did a program on that, and I'll send you some links to it because we had some really strong women talking about exactly how this has been going on and the things that we can begin to do about it, including suggestions for what groups like the GEC can do in terms of, yes, personal kinds of things, but also how do we change the way we're looking at things? How do we push for issues, as Natalia and Mirgani and almost everybody else was talking about? How do we get gender included in every commission? It should not just be in the Gender Equity Commission. And Antonio Guterres, who is the head of the UN, has made it a mandate that in every commission, they have to have a focus also on the way on gender issues and how it's affecting women and having women part of making the decisions about that. So I guess my passion is always, how do we connect ourselves with other people? How do we get out there? And a really big one for me when I was on the commission and now is how do we get the community involved more directly? How do we have not just the commissioners on doing tasks, but how do we have the commissioners running the committees and bringing people in who are going to be affected by this and who want to work on this and have different kinds of ideas? And so that would be really what I would urge here, is continue doing that. After the report came out and we met with the community, it made such a difference in how we were seen and what we learned from them. And that they had been doing this work for so long that we didn't even know where to start. So you're doing a great job. It's so exciting to see what you're following through with. The workforce group, of course, has always been one of our leading groups in getting things done in the commission. And now that we're sort of out of the pandemic, I'm sure you're going to be spreading out and getting more things done and being more out there. And Rick Williams called me while we were on this and asked if I would say for him, because he can't come, he said he never thought that we would have the impact on private corporations that we're having. He had gone out and done a lot of presentations because he had connections with them, and he has seen how they made some changes in the way they dealt with gender issues. And that was just on a little bit of time and a little bit of energy. So that's, again, a way to continue that. And Rick is back in city government now, so he can help with that again. Thank you all, and hope to see you soon.
Thank you, Lee. Bye, Amanda. Thank you for joining us. I know some of our commissioners had to hop off because, life. Janet, you have your hand up.
Yeah, Chelsea Palatino, who is a former commissioner, she joined in 2018. She was on the original. She was the OG, and then left in 2019. She actually relocated to Washington, D.C., but she was on the call. She had to drop off, but she wanted me to relay this message. And that is, again, thank you again for inviting me to today's session. It was lovely to see everyone and to hear about all of the progress that has been made. She echoes everything that has been shared, especially about Mayor Gainey's response. It was refreshing to have him join us and to see very clearly his support and passion about the GEC's work. She knows that he will continue to be an instrumental advocate for the GEC. And she ended it by saying, while I'm no longer in Pittsburgh or on the commission, if I can ever be of help to the GEC, please let me know. Best wishes, Chelsea Palatino. And she had to leave, but she was on earlier.
Thank you so much for that, Janet. And once a commissioner, always a commissioner, right?
Morgan Block, who was a former commissioner, also was an OG from 2018, and then she left in 2020, I believe also. She now works for the EEOC. She had a work matter, but she sent the email stating that she is supportive and proud of the work that she had done while on the GEC, and she wishes us the very best, and whatever she can do to continue to help us, she will do it. Thank you.
I was like, you got anybody else? Thank you. Their spirit is here, so we feel it. And like I said, I know some folks had to drop off because, you know, life, but for our current commissioners, some that we haven't heard from today, Judy Hale, do you mind sharing your answer to my question, or both questions? Thank you for joining us.
I'm really mindful of the time that we're spending here today. So I want to say that I am really proud from the work that we did in preparing the draft ordinance using the template from Cities for CDOT and the San Francisco ordinance, that we made sure that the word intersectional appeared every time the word gender appeared. And I think I'm going to leave it at that because we're 20 minutes over, and I'm currently really struggling with how much work women do without getting paid to promote women's rights in society. So I will leave it at that and say thank you for the amazing work everyone on this call, including those who have logged off already, have done.
Yes, thank you, Judy, especially on National Equal Pay Day. So much has to be done. Yeah. And we've heard from everybody on the call in different ways today, and we thank you for sticking with us 20 minutes after. I think the sun set and everything. It's nighttime now. But that basically sums up our 4th birthday celebration. I'm so excited. We look forward to the wins that we will celebrate along the way and the lessons learned in this crucial work for our community and for the future of our beloved city. And as mentioned earlier, we can't do this work alone. So we encourage all of you to stay involved. We love innovation. We love ideas. So stay tuned with the work that we do through pittsburghpa.gov/GEC, and email us. We love to hear from you, genderequity@pittsburghpa.gov. Thank you again to Mayor Gainey for spending time with us today, for his solidarity with us. Thank you to our OG commissioners for sharing time with us today, and our present and future commissioners for continuing this work and this movement forward and onward. So with that, we can commence the meeting. Take care, everyone, and till next time.